Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today, we are talking about making your own luck and how important it is to be positive, to focus on the good, to not let yourself get dragged down by like little issues or not to work things up in your head to make them like bigger than they seem. But we're mostly going to be focusing on this concept of lucky, and it's a double-edged sword for sure because you look at yourself and you think, oh, I'm not lucky, like, this doesn't happen to me, or like good things don't happen, like people don't text me back, they like situations don't work out in my favor. There's all kinds of things that we like to see about ourselves and visualize about ourselves that it's all perception, right? Like you're not unlucky. It's just you're only viewing the situations in your life that seem unlucky, if that makes sense. So you might look at an individual and see all of the good. Social media is really good at that. You just see all of the really good stuff, the positives, the happy times, the, enjoyment, all these people living their lives on yachts in the Mediterranean or something. And you might think like, man, they're so lucky, like they have like this amazing life. But you don't see the elements of their life that are unlucky. You don't see the elements of their life that are really hard or, not as nice as it might seem. And so you have this perception that these like Hollywood celebrities and these beautiful people, the beautiful people, you have this perception that they have this like charmed, blessed life when everyone's life has a lot of stuff that we wish we didn't have to talk about or we wish we didn't have to deal with. Everybody has, I've said this a bunch of times, but everybody has situations in their life which are really hard, really difficult to deal with. Your parents get sick, your friends move away, you don't know what you're doing with your life, you wish you were eating healthy, wish you didn't swear as much. Like there's all these kinds of like, concepts and things that you want to improve on or you want to deal with, but you're not really wanting to show that off to everyone else. You're not really wanting to be like, yeah, my life is really hard. Some people are like that, but I feel like the most of us are very much conceal, don't feel, don't let it show, to quote Elsa from Frozen. But yeah, I think that there is this like strong drive to try to put our best foot forward, and that's great, like focus on the positive, that kind of stuff. But you don't want to go so far that you sort of hide the real you and the life you're living. And you need to realize that everyone else is kind of doing the same thing. So you cannot, and that's why I've always said, like, never compare yourself to others, compare yourself to who you were yesterday. It's a great quote. It's been said by a million people, but the advice really rings true. You have to focus on the good stuff in your life as well as, trying to figure out how to avoid the bad stuff in the future. But you got to make your own luck, and this is gonna come full circle now. And making your own luck really requires some positivity. It requires, some pragmatic thought. You got to be realistic with yourself. You have to have, you know, goals in mind that aren't ludicrous, but, you've got to be able to reach for them as well. And I know I'm sort of sounding like very wishy-washy of like, in order to go left, you must go right. In order to go up, you must go down. But being your own luck and making your own luck is really just about focusing on the good and attempting to learn from your mistakes and embrace your successes and really like let your successes flourish. People are sometimes very, very complimentary and they say stuff like, oh my gosh, Jax, like you seem so lucky, like life is so good, you're working so hard, like blah 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 blah. And it's nice to hear, but on the other hand, it's a bit difficult for me to hear because they're seeing the perception that I give out. They're seeing the videos that I send out. They're seeing the content that I choose to present. And so, you're not seeing like my daily struggles or my overthinking or my anxiety or me lying in bed awake at night thinking about ridiculous things that never happen and never are going to happen, but they keep me awake at night. So, there's like a window in which you're seeing like the real me. Like you're seeing me. You're not seeing like some manicured fake version of me, but you're not seeing the entirety of who I am. So like you're seeing like a real authentic me in the moment. Like I am sitting in the bedroom on the bed talking to you guys, and this is me. Like I'm not faking my voice, I'm not faking what I look like I don't have any AI filters on. Like this is just who I am. However, when the video goes off, you're not going to see like what I do next and the life I lead and all of that kind of stuff. And so it's really easy. It's really, really easy to like watch somebody and just be like, man, they seem like their whole life is together and like just a lucky guy. And it's like, well, yes, I'm very lucky. I'm very blessed, but not to the extent that you might think. You know, I've got stuff going on. We all do. So that being said, and like that caveat sort of on there going like, everybody isn't as lucky as they seem. You are able to make your own luck and to like create a perception of your life that is really beneficial. And this comes back to like self-talk and a lot of the ways that we like view our life. There's been some research done on sort of like how people view their lives, and a lot of people actually view their lives in like a narrative or like a story plot line. And so you have this narrative inside your head of like, well, I was born here, my parents are here, you know, I have these siblings or cousins or friends or family, and I grew up in this like place. It like I had like these events happen. We went on a trip, you know, this traumatic thing happened to me. And then I graduated and I decided that I wanted to do this as a career, or I went to school and did this. And then I moved across, like we have this narrative in our minds about who we are and what we've done. And, you know, it's one thing to have like a plotline narrative of like all of the physical things you have done and seen and been with, but it's another thing to have this thematic storyline of like, yep, Jax was born here, and ever since then he has tragically dealt with anxiety, and you know he's constantly had to battle like his own worst fears, and like his brain is his worst enemy. And you know, like we have this thematic idea of what our life has been like, and like, well, we're just like a unlucky kind of guy, like, you know, nothing ever goes right for us. But that's all thematic, right? Like that is all perception based on events that you're remembering. And you're most likely forgetting like really good events, or you're most likely forgetting a huge amount of the actual story that makes up your life. You know, like I recently thought about a third grade teacher I hadn't thought about since third grade. And I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot that they existed and that they were a part of my story. And so just like that teacher, we often forget the good or certain bad things that happened. And that kind of gives us like a false perception of how lucky we are or how fortunate we are. And it can be good, it can be bad, depending on like if you forget a bad event, then maybe you view your childhood as much better than it was. Or if you forget all the good events, all the nice birthdays, all the fun excursions and summer vacations, then suddenly you're like, well, my childhood was awful. You know, I had a horrible, rough time. I was sad all the time. And you're not remembering all of those really idyllic, fun moments. So I'm not advocating for you to create some like false perception of what you were doing, but understand that if you view yourself as an unlucky person, or you view yourself as like a really depressed person, you're probably omitting some of the story. There's probably more than meets the eye, essentially. Just in the same way that we don't judge a book by its cover, you shouldn't judge yourself by the outwards appearance that you give off. And that goes for physical, mental, spiritual, relationship. Like that goes for every aspect of your life. You can't judge yourself by just a few like misplaced ideas of what you are. And so going back to the theme of making your own luck, basically what I've said is your own perception and understanding of your life is subjective. You know, it's based on what you want to remember, what you don't want to remember, what happened and what didn't happen. So it's all relative. And I had a teacher who always said it's all relative, and that used to really annoy me because he was a history teacher, and I was like, shouldn't we like have exact events that happened? And he would say, well, like, what event? What event do you want to think of? I was like, well, the moon landing. Like, it definitely happened. And he's like, okay, but your perception of it is different than somebody who lived during the moon landing. And then their perception of it is different if they lived in America, if they lived in the USSR, if they lived in Canada. So everybody had a different perception of the same event. So it's all relative. You know, the event might have happened, maybe, maybe not, who knows? I'm not here to judge that, but it's all relative. You know, the event was experienced by people in different ways. So if you want to view yourself as an unlucky person who constantly, like, you know, gets defeated, gets lost, has a hard time of it, then that'll be your perception. But if you choose to have a perception of yourself as like, no, you know what, like, I'm determined, I get lucky every now and then, and I have, like, you know, some good advice, I have some good friends, and life works out, that's what life will do. And so you really do get to, like, make it how you want it. And it's incredible how much a subjective experience can be just that. And, like, you really get to shape your life however you want to. So I don't know, you like, I think I made this video because, like, you meet people in your life who are constantly just like, well, I'm so stupid, like, I'm just like a dumb kid. And I always think, like, no, you're not. Like, that's just the perception you have of yourself. You're actually, like, an incredibly you're one of the smartest beings in the universe as far as we know. Like, if you're a human being, you are one of the smartest things to ever exist. And so you're like, oh, I'm just some dumb kid. I'm like, well, it's all relative, because, you know, the worms and the bees, if they could think at our level, they would think that we are, like, incredibly intelligent. Sorry, there's a fly and it's, like, freaking out. Anyway, that is all I wanted to say today. Fake it till you make your own luck. And I love you guys. And of course, as always, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.